Did you just
I just
ring us?
dinged you. You have been dinged.
We've been done.
She said done.
Ready to go. That's the past tense of dinged, done. Everybody knows.
I think this.
Okay. Well, let's establish some decorum and call to order the Denver County Board of Commissioners informal work session. We don't have a work session and we don't have any department updates, but we'll see if the preliminary consent agenda is mutually agreeable, Commissioner, and if so, we'll go ahead and move that forward. Anything you want to take off?
Not take off, but I think, Commissioner, you were
For
going to
discussion.
comment on the plan.
Oh, yeah. No,
Okay.
I just, I appreciate this getting before us.
Cynthia, do you want to come
Yeah.
up, please?
Yeah. I was not able to participate in the entire scoring meeting, but we had a very good turnout of our board, and the discussion on this was very lively, and there was very good input from the board as they went through and prioritized these projects as they go forward. And it was 1 through 19, and I think the sheet gives you a good breakdown on how we're moving forward with this. And I just want to thank Cynthia for all the work she did getting this pulled together with a short timeline, because once we got the plan completed from our what's their name?
Oh, Nelson Iger.
Yeah. We had a short window to get this in, but we had to change our structure. And so Cynthia's been really moving forward, but, and I appreciate the hard work. I think this reflects some very thoughtful input from all of our new 11-member board, and I think it's going to work exceptionally well to provide the services that YCPA needs to provide. So, Cynthia, from that, if you want to add anything.
Couple things. So this is the actual, from the committee, we ranked it, and then orange and Nelson Iger went back, and you'll see, I don't know if yours isn't highlighted yellow, but it should be one that says project rank with 100% and 130% list. And if you see 2.1, 2.2, it's because when you're doing the application, there's tasks. And so some projects are, I kind of look at them as separate projects, but let's say it's all the McMinnville service, then it's broken down into tasks, so that's why it's that. The committee did make some changes, so when they were ranking the projects, this list was drawn from the Transit Development Plan. And then there was discussion, and they moved a couple things, and I'll just highlight those. The bus match, they moved to the top because we have to have a bus match. If we get the buses, then we're going to need that. So that was moved up to number 1. And then they prioritized, I think, the things that are a little bit interesting, but I think are fit well. Obviously, McMinnville services 2. And then you'll notice 3 is it's the bus stop improvements. So they really felt that was important. Now, one of the challenges we have with bus stop improvements, it is so important, but it's also one of the more challenging projects to actually get done. So we'll just have to talk about that later. There is money set aside for that, but it's not so much that, you've got to get the approvals, and there's quite a bit of administrative work that has to be done besides just, the money to buy or purchase a bus stop sign. And so we had a little discussion about that. They also thought Saturday service, am I saying it was more important? So ranked 7 and 8 is McMinnville Saturday service. They moved that ahead of the additional later evening service that had been ranked higher from the committee work. So those are kind of everything else those are the major changes that they made. And I think actually they're all good. And then, did you get a copy of the sheet that looks like this? I think it was in the packet. It's got sort of a summary. You may not have. If you didn't, Yeah, well, it's sort of the 100% list and 130% list
Oh,
summary.
no.
I've got some more here. There's one. There may be duplication for you on these things that are
Would you share?
attached to this,
That's right.
but, I might get one more. Okay. So this is a good way to look at how the money will flow. So based on the way the requirements are for this funding, we have to create lists, 100% less than 130%, because they don't really know exactly how much money we're going to get. If you look at the bottom two rows, the preliminary revenue projection for 19 is 496,000. Now, if more than that came in, so they did 130% projection, it'd be 645,000. Now you notice our 100% list is more than that, but the reason for that is that we wanted to put all the things we really want to do on the 100% list, because depending on how much money flows, we still want it to move and be the top of the list the next year.
Right.
And so it's a little bit confusing, but you'll see as the year we go out in the years, then our 100% list and even our 130% list is closer to what we think we'll probably get in the funding. So we did add this. This wasn't originally in the plan, but I on some of the projects that I felt like we're going to need some help, whether it's getting consultant help or vendor help. We added some planning and administration costs. And you'll I don't know if it shows on where he showed it on this project. On
That
this
was
list.
the median, the 3-year.
Yeah, it's. Let me look and see if where he has it on here. It might be on that sheet. Maybe he didn't separate. Oh yeah, it is. So on the one that has the green, on the far right of this spreadsheet, let's see, it looks like this. It's got, I know, so there should be a column that says planning and admin 10% one time at the top on the far right. Do you see that on your spreadsheet? Maybe you don't have the one I have. You may have it earlier.
Notes.
I know it's
So,
confusing.
you can look at this one. There's
Do you want to use that one
people.
instead?
We updated it. Yeah, is it right? There it is.
There
You
it
got it.
is.
So you do have to, it's just tiny. I'm
Yeah.
sorry about that. So you'll notice that there's that dollar amount. We didn't really know exactly how to figure that out. We added a 10% to projects that we felt like we're going to need a little bit of additional help possibly. Because, for example, a shopper shuttle or whatever, we call it shopper shuttle, it's really a local flex route. That's going to require some meetings and getting people together and saying, okay, let's say Yamaha Carlton wants to set something up, well, we're going to have to get some, have some conversation about what do they exactly want. Do they want that demand response? Do they want a shuttle that meets the commuter route? What kind of service? So that was an addition that wasn't really spelled out in the transit development plan. But the committee was aware of that. It was on the list when the committee was doing their ranking. Let's see what else. I know it's a lot of information to absorb, and it's really in a format based on what we have to do for the application. I do want to say Carrie's been doing all the outcome piece, Oren's been gathering every project has to have, you'll see all these columns, all of those columns of information are related to what is required in the application.
Wow.
So you have to have what goals, in fact, he hid some of them in
Try
his
to make it
latest
easy.
version, because there's all the Oregon Transit.
One ain't
Okay,
confusing.
right, exactly. Then there's we have to figure out what do we think the mileage be, ridership, will it serve the school? So actually the latest task that happened was Carrie gathered some school data so we could get what were the enrollment for the most recent enrollment for all the schools, because they actually want numbers. So if we have a route that goes past the school, then we can say we're serving X number of students with this route. I mean, it's a
So you
little,
could just
it's a
drive
bit
by
over
and
the top, I have to say.
Do a drive-by.
You
Yeah,
drive by and go,
but-
wow,
yeah.
that's another 3,000
So,
people here.
I mean, I think that we don't really know yet, the money's gonna flow in. It's not like we're gonna put this in like a regular grant, we're gonna get 496,000. We're gonna get however the money flows. You're gonna start getting it because it's a tax. As soon as the OTC approves it, then they, I don't know what else they have to do. I'm sure there's a few other things. Then the county will start receiving those funds slowly.
But before it happens, you have to jump through all these hoops.
Sure.
And they make it this screwed up. So that if they choose not to send you any money, they can say, well, column 6 on page 6 wasn't correct, so your whole thing was thrown out.
Well, it's true, it's fortunate that we were doing the
Oh,
planning
you-
process.
Yeah,
at
I
the
feel
same
sorry
time.
for
Would
you.
never have been able to do it.
No,
if
you
weren't.
couldn't, and
No.
that was, it just fortuitous.
Yeah.
Yes.
That happened
Yeah.
in conjunction, so
Yes,
we were able
definitely.
to
Tailor
piggyback
it.
on that,
Yeah.
and we had just completed that and we were at the
Mhm.
point of accepting and then changing our structure. All of those things happened, so we are really,
I would guess we're probably gonna have one of the better
Mhm.
applications,
Oh.
other than maybe Trinet, because they have all this information all the time. But
And
We have
they have a
14
staff.
people
yeah, they got a
work
lot
on
of
it.
people to work
300
on it,
people
but
working on it.
I would guess
They have
ours might
somebody
be
in
used as
charge
a
of
model
each one of
because
these
they're-
columns.
it's probably
Yeah,
really
no
what they
kidding.
want. I'm guessing that, but because I can't imagine most of the other smaller systems have the ability to do this. One important thing is at the meeting, you always have public comment, but it might be good to just say, does anybody have anything they want to share or information, or that they want to, talk about regarding, we're calling it the STIP plan because that's how the state is referring to it, so I think we should probably refer to it.
So we have to take that off
Do you
the
want this
agenda.
off the consent agenda
In order to-
then?
Yes,
on it.
I think it should be on
Okay.
this. I think we should have it so that you can open it up, see if anybody has any, because
Gotcha.
technically it should be open to the public to,
Okay.
this is our last and final chance to say, hey,
Okay.
we don't like this or we do like that.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
you're
very much.
Thank you both for your
Thank you
work.
both. Appreciate the work. Any other comments or questions before we move on to the next item?
No, I think, I just want to again acknowledge the work that Cynthia put into this. This happened at an unfortunate time with all the things that she had going on, and yet to work through this and get it to this point, just kudos, thank you very
Yeah, and
much.
I couldn't have done it. These spreadsheets are really hard, and Carrie, the application is, it's not that it's hard, it's just a lot. It's a
Tedious.
lot to go through.
Proves again how much
So
better
it's-
we are when we're working together.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank
So
you
it's
for
really
Cynthia
helpful to
Carrie.
have
Appreciate
everybody
your work.
on it.
Thank you for
Thank you.
getting this done. I think it's going to be nice to see some of these.
Cynthia doesn't have to stay.
Unless
Carrie
you're
gets
talking
to
about
stay
something.
for the
Oh.
wildlife.
Oh, the wildlife thing.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thanks,
Does this to
Cynthia.
do with the gas? Or not?
It's a special
No.
project.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Cynthia.
guys.
All right, so let's move on to the, we've got another item, and that is county council contract. And we've had a chance, all the commissioners have had a chance to look at it. Do we want to add that to the consent agenda?
I'm fine with that, unless anybody wants to discuss it. I reviewed it,
Okay.
asked the questions I had, and I'm satisfied.
All right, so then we will move the consideration of the county council contract to the consent agenda. And any other items? We do have one we've been trying to talk about for a couple of weeks, and that is item D, would be like D2 at this point, I'm guessing. Consideration of the possible contract options for wildlife control services. And I think, Commissioner, you probably had a chance to get up to speed on the history of the county's history with this, and we can maybe talk about some options.
Well, it's been a long time since we contracted
Right.
for this service, and but the need is really starting to rear its ugly head, as was attested to in the public comment we had last week, and it's getting more and more, and now we can start anticipating the wolves because of the population and expansion in eastern Oregon. So I think we need to be really cognizant of, number one, the cougars and how much more activity we're seeing. We have our rural residents, right now it's animals that we're seeing a significant number, but the human lives, I don't want to sit on this until all of a sudden we have a child carried away or something, so, not that it can happen, but I think we need to be really cognizant of the fact that, I don't think we need to hire somebody, I think we should have it on some type of a contract for a service provided on a call out, having someone available that our citizens can make contact with and receive that service if it's needed, so.
So the question we have before us really is how much do we want the county to, what is the financial obligation or commitment from the county? There are a number of different options. We can do a sort of a cost share instead of having somebody, because we certainly can't afford.
I think it should be a fee for service, personally.
Well,
If you do that, then it'd be sort of like what we've had in the past 10 years or so, where a property owner can contact the county, you promise up to a certain amount as long as they'll cost share with you. If we were to enter into a contract with the agency, USDA, they would expect a commitment of at least a half-time person, which would be $42,000 with a match from us. So any kind of cost share would be, folks contacting us.
So we have three options, and that is allow the property owners to control predators on their property, which is pretty much the way it is now.
Correct.
The other thing is for us to do in other words, if we contract for what sort of fee for service, cost share with the property owners, or do the part-time position. I'm kind of leaning two ways. I don't think we need to get another contract with another entity. I think that's pretty expensive. So there's two ways of looking at it. Is this something that should be the onus should be on the property owner to control predators on their property? Or is it something that we should enable each property owner to get some county funds to mitigate those predators? So that's, so Carrie, you've been looking into this, and I know Lori, you spent a bunch of time just looking at some of the options.
I visited with the young lady who brought this to our attention last week. I had a nice visit with her, and her concern is having somebody to reach out to. It's not, she says, I don't want to pay for it, but I don't know, we don't have anybody identified as the go-to person.
Well, we had difficulty ourselves finding someone, so that isn't going to be solved by having us help. Carrie can give you some information about the difficulty she had.
Yeah, there's, the USDA has a list of control operators, wildlife control operators, but when you start to look at, okay, well, which ones will provide service in Yamhill County, it's rapidly a very short list. And then of those people, which ones will manage the type of wildlife that we're looking at, and then which ones will actually call you back. So they don't want to talk about sort of, well, what were some average pricing? I was only able to extract guidelines, broad guidelines from two different operators, because they don't want to talk about that. They're saying, it's impossible to say, and there's talk about the trapping, but there really is no trapping. So there's just shooting.
And it depends on the situation.
Yeah, so they say, if you are wanting to trap an animal and relocate it, then you're going to talk about a whole lot of money, because they have no idea of knowing how many are in a pack.
Right.
But to just eliminate individual animals, they are certainly willing to do it, but they're very overworked. There's a lot of demand for that, and the USDA said that right now we don't have a real accurate sense of how much need there is in the county, because people are not calling the county. They have long since stopped calling the county, and they call the USDA directly, and they had so many that they had stopped officially counting how many requests they get.
So we don't know how many they're getting, so.
Yeah, they were getting enough that they just kind of stopped counting, because it was a significant number. So in the past, they've had programs where the county could sign up. You could sign up for a half-time or a full-time person. You had a 1-year waiting period, and then you propose to them what your match would be, and then they come back with what they're willing to match on their behalf. So it's it's a little backwards by that, but you have to at least kick in 25%. And then they may do up to 75% matching on that cost sharing. Right now, they have said that if we wanted to get into that, they're doing their budgets now. If we signed up before January, we wouldn't have a waiting year. So that would be one incentive if you wanted to do the half-time person. But to have somebody on call, I mean, you can give those phone numbers, but man, it's hard to get a hold of them.
Yeah. You know, a lot of, and this is kind of what my experience has been, is that if people have been managing, some people don't mind coyotes on their program, on their property. Other people, because of livestock issues, apparently do, and they do trap and they do shoot, and they're better positioned to do that because they're on their property and they're monitoring. They don't have to pick up the phone because they know what's going on. A lot of this is nocturnal, so you can't just be standing there waiting if you're you've got a contract with somebody. The other thing is, so there's that part of it, but I think what I would be leaning toward is if we do something, we find a way to do, in theory, the cost share. But then again, what do we do when we really can't deliver because there isn't a provider?
A provider willing or prepared or ready to
Or
go out.
or available, yeah.
They have
Yes.
big service areas too, so I don't know how, I mean, they're very, very busy. So
Yeah.
you're not gonna get a call back the same day for sure.
I just don't want to say, well, you're on your own and have people out there just shooting up the countryside either.
Well, they're not shooting up the countryside. If
Well-
they've got predators and they're attacking their
No.
livestock. They're taking care of the problem as they see fit. But if we can't even say we got somebody that's going to show up, all the programs in the world aren't going to help us help our.
We are always looking for someplace to go target practice, Mary.
I don't shoot animals.
Yeah,
Oh, so.
and some people aren't willing to. I mean, to say it's their responsibility, there are many property owners and they don't want to shoot them themselves, so they would like someone else to.
And a hired gun.
But they don't want it killing their animals.
Right, they
But
would
they
like
don't-
it taken care of, but they are not willing to shoot it.
I don't know that I don't know what the answer is. We've been kind of discussing this for months and haven't been able to come up with something that we can even offer people because they don't even have a go-to. And I think that's kind of where, free enterprise comes in. If there's a need and there's a market for someone to
You
come.
think somebody would step up to
Well, and that was part of the service that we did offer, that on a time and available basis, we would offer this opportunity. If a property owner called and wanted to avail themselves of this cost share with the county, we said yes. However, it's on a time available basis. If we can't get someone out there, we are unable to.
There's a couple of those 4-H'ers last night.
Oh my goodness.
I think that, that might be a way to pay for their college.
Those kids who are doing, there are 80 programs through 4-H, and a lot of them is shooting skills.
Yeah.
And these kids, some of these young ladies, they're pretty adept with a rifle. But that might be something that we
Put it out there.
put out there to OSU, but to be honest, I think all we can do
I
is.
think county council and your administrator might have an issue with that.
I think what we do is we say, we have a list of providers, here they are.
Yeah,
And I don't know that we
people
can have
could
any
sign
more.
up to be on that list.
What about like a cost recovery on a part-time person? So you cover the cost of it, your portion, and then you still have a fee, a portion of fees that are required from any property owner, and then that goes back into the cost recovery for the part-time person.
So you're asking us then to fund this,
Proactively, yeah, that you would do it up front, 25%, and then see what the demand is.
And they pay.
but
they go
but
to
who's
them.
that somebody that's going to be?
You're talking about contracting with USDA. is what
Oh,
you're
yeah,
suggesting.
yeah, so they, well,
Yeah.
you're not
That's the-
contracting with them, but they would be cost sharing on whomever you do contract with.
But it wouldn't be us, because, in other words, if there are no providers that are just out there waiting to be hired,
Yeah, I don't know if, I don't know exactly what their pool is, but they didn't indicate that that was an issue. It was more of, yeah, that they had some people that might be available for halftime or whatever, and some of these people, I guess, job share with other counties. So I don't know who it is, but.
so how do you get, if you're doing job share in other counties and you've got a predator problem on a property in Eola Hills or something, as far as expediency of getting somebody who's working in Lincoln County and getting them out when they're killing ewes now?
I
Now,
don't
they
know
would
that they
dedicate the halftime to Yamhill County if we contracted with them.
And we would have to,
Yeah, they wouldn't, because nobody else, I mean, everybody else has, like Marion and Polk, I think, have somebody shared.
No, yes.
Marion
Yeah.
Polk do?
No, Marion County pays for a full-time themselves. Polk shares with Lynn County.
Oh, with Lynn.
I mean, yeah, no, Polk shares with Benton County. Polk only pays 15,000. Benton County pays for the rest.
Well, maybe we should partner with.
I already asked.
A wealthier county.
They won't
How
share.
about Washington County?
how about Multnomah County? They got a lot of cougars there and coyotes
Kind of a long drive.
And people.
and people.
Washington County, I mean, they've got some,
They have their
quite a
own.
bit of rural.
They're very reluctant to impose on
Share.
another county setup. I already asked.
Clackamas County has,
Not very close.
Who did,
it's very, very close to parts of
it's
Yamhill
very
County.
close to.
Your
Mary.
house?
Yeah, it's very close to my
Yeah,
house.
she
Like, it's
steps
only
out her
close to
gate
your
and
house.
she's in another
Right,
county.
right.
But seriously, Clackamas County being, and
I already asked if there are other counties we could
and
piggyback with,
And they said no?
and he said no.
The guy from
USA.
USA.
Yes.
But we didn't talk to somebody within those counties.
Clackamas County might be worth just checking with them.
Is this an issue?
Now,
for
would
the
they-
tribe?
Do they
tried?
contract with USDA, did you say, Washington?
Polk, I only asked about Polk. Well, they told me, they were reluctant to give me a lot of information. Polk, Benton, Lynn, and Marion. Those are the ones in our region that they have contracts with.
Huh. Maybe Clackamas has some private deal, I don't know. This seems as to be we just keep doing this circular reasoning and we don't ever come up with a,
I mean, if you're interested in a contract, you know, they said they'd give us a halftime person. We can contact Clackamas and see what they have going.
Well, I'm sure that those counties that you just named that are currently working with them are doing it because they have a problem.
Mhm.
I'm sure Washington County is not exempt from that problem, nor is Tillamook, nor is Lincoln, and they're all adjacent to us. But if there were any way to work with another county, subcontract with them rather than create another contract for ourselves, I don't know, we do need to provide a way for our citizens to access this service because it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. This is the third citizen that I know. Gunderman was on the phone last month or last week, and this young lady that spoke last week at our Jennifer,
and then we got an email months ago. So,
Well, you do have the current program that you could extend to folks calling in, that if they want a cost share, we could either give them names or contact the private individuals on their behalf. But again, it's on a time available basis.
Yeah.
It isn't a dedicated person to Yamhill County.
sure.
And
And-
reimbursable, is that what?
And that 250, are we gonna stay with that 250?
That's up to the board.
So that would be 250 per incident, right?
It would be 500 total, 250 for the property owner.
Okay, right.
and we cover the other 250.
Mhm.
Yes.
I don't see that there's anything deficient in that, all things things being considered.
And that
As long
includes
as we
travel.
have somebody available to, not that we can make them available immediately, but that
Here's
we
an
have a
option.
contact
They were
person.
interested.
Yeah.
There were
Okay.
two people that I spoke with who were interested in providing their services in Yamaha County.
And that was, based on $50 an hour, 10 hours of service, including travel, and that's half the cost. And, you know, that seems to me relatively fair even now. We can double check the, billable hours if and when we get, you know, a hold of someone, make sure that's still relevant.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And they want the specific details. I mean, they want to withhold their estimate of cost until they know which animal, what do you want me to do with it? You know, how many of them are there, that kind of thing, which is reasonable, but it's kind of tough to nail it down.
Yeah, I think that's fair, not only to the property owners, it gives them an option and a little bit of a cost relief on that, but I also think it's equitable when you think about the rest of the taxpayers are funding this.
Well, and if we allow this thing to get bigger, the problem could become significant if it's already much larger than it was, what, 3-4 years ago. And we hear more and more sightings and, you know, I remember walking down along the creek there in Dallas, Janice and I, and all of a sudden she looked up and said, "Boy, look at the size of that cat." And it was
Meow.
right across her, and I
Kitty, kitty.
said, "Honey, that's no cat." And so I ran up the street and I called the police and,
If you tell Janice, keep an eye on that, I'm going
yeah,
for help.
yeah. Well, I had to figure out where we
Take
were.
these
We were
dishes
down-
off the-
But the bottom line is that they are coming right into the area. There was a park not too far from this, that's why I was so anxious to get somebody in there. But anyway.
So do we want to put that on the agenda for next week and have sort of write it up as a proposal? And then,
I think
Vote on
we need
it?
to identify the people that would be available, that if we're gonna put that out to the citizens as their option, these are the people that we would set up for you or work with you on, and make sure that we have good contact information, that they are people that want to do the trick, and then we can if we could get 2 or 3 that would be available on that basis, I think that would do the trick. And
okay,
Or we can put this on the
All right.
website so it's advertised.
and then we can talk to those who've contacted us.
Sure, I'll have Carrie write up a proposal and we'll put it on the agenda for
Thank
next
you,
week.
and thank you, Laura, for, you've done a lot of work on this, and Carrie as
Carrie,
well.
too.
It's been a long process, so thank you both for
Yeah.
bringing this to this point. Okay, so we've got that, no executive session. Commissioner updates, Commissioner Klimazich.
Yes, Commissioner Sterrett.
Would you like to share some of the things you've been,
Well,
Spending time
let's
doing?
see, trying to put together a budget for AOC, worked on
Okay.
that for quite a while. Worked on workforce development with our Willamette Workforce Partnership, which I chair the Jobs Council, and we had a good meeting yesterday to bring all the board members together and give them a tutorial on who we are, why we are, what we do, how we're funded, and it was really eye-opening for people who, they come to a board meeting occasionally and they really didn't understand how far-reaching and who we contract with. So anyway, that was a good meeting. Yeah, just.
Got some good news today?
Yeah, I'm doing what?
You got some good news today?
As some of you may
Which
know,
Commissioner Sterrett will be especially happy
a
to hear.
week ago,
let me guess, under the category of,
a week ago, Carrie and I drove down to Springfield and made a presentation to the OPID
Yes.
board. And guess what? We were successful, and we will be receiving a $75,000 grant from them to help us move forward with the trail. Yay! Miss Mary.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're
Thank
so
Thank
welcome.
you for sharing.
I was not gonna bring that up, but you
No,
insisted. And
I want to
I
hear it
think in
all.
all fairness
You
to
can tell
Carrie,
me anything, I might
and
not
all
like
the
to hear
work,
it, but you can
and
tell
all
me.
the work that Carrie put into that, but, no, it was, just a really good opportunity to do that gap, but we had a little gap there.
Little gap.
It's a connector.
All right, anything else?
Well, gee.
Isn't that enough? I also have some good news. Well, I have some good news. And that is that, as you know, I've been serving on the Distracted Driving Task Force, the State of Oregon's task force, and we are one of only 4 states because of the things that we've implemented, including the fact that we now have law enforcement has an actual category on their crash reports as to whether or not a mobile device was involved, which I think is, we're seeing so many head-on collisions, we're seeing so many really dangerous collisions in Yamhill County that a lot of them are inexplicable. As why did somebody just cross the median? Why are we going head to head?
Because they're texting.
And so there is now a category, and some of the forensics are showing that there's a lot of that going on. We also have legislation which has upped the ante for those who've been texting or touching on a mobile device. But we did get a $1.2 million grant that we're going to
Me or the
use.
state of Oregon?
It's the state, sorry.
Okay,
We're gonna
got it.
get a little, yeah, sorry, not just us. But we're gonna talk about increasing law enforcement presence, which is a huge, that halo effect. You see a cop car, and you put the device down, and hopefully your behavior changes. But so there's been an awful lot of public education, communications, changing the culture in the schools. Anyway, and a diversion course if you do get busted. So we're working on that, but we did get a little pot of money, so we can continue with that. Have spoken today to Kay Sawyer at the Gospel Rescue Mission, and they're going to be moving ahead to look at further inspections of the 14th Street property, so we can get that thing moved down the line. Also, there was
Well, is Sherry gonna do that? Sherry, she owns a building across the street here, because she was the one that was gonna step up and pay for that work.
the mold inspection. I'm not sure who's paying for it, but they are scheduled to go out there
I
tomorrow at
believe
1
Dave
o'clock.
mentioned they had her take a look at it at one point, maybe there's some additional more in-depth inspection.
Yeah.
She-
Mold.
Oh, sure.
I went over and met with her, and she was gonna do all the renovation necessary to get that building up and functioning.
So they're they're looking at whether or not mold is a consideration, because that, of course,
That would make a difference.
So there's that. Also, we did have a Public Works update through the Office of Emergency Management as to what's going to happen this winter. And interestingly enough, ODOT's talking about deploying these weather stations at high elevations like Rex Hill and Eola Hills and in the snow zones. And they're basically going to be able to tell whether or not they need to get people out there. So we've also they've talked a little bit about sand and gravel stockpiling, because Portland gets it all. So if we don't stockpile it before we have an event, we're not going to have gravel, we're not going to have sand. They've also got magnesium chloride tank in Newburgh, so they can de-ice the roads, and a 4,000-ton tank, and there'll be mobile tanks in Yamhill County, and also for the bypass. And what else? Milepost 27 on Highway 99 is the worst accident place because there is no detour route available. You can't detour people in that dip. So there's that. But anything above 500 feet, that's Eola Hills, Baker Creek, Sheridan, Willamina, different quadrants of the county, ODOT has a whole plan on how they're going to do move-outs. It's kind of like the fire station does. Also, I've submitted a 4-page records request to the Department of Human Services for some information on child welfare, number of kids in foster care, and five pages in terms of placements. As you know, I've made several inquiries as to whether or not, how many of our kids are on psychiatric medications, and I've been stonewalled at every effort. Now we have another request going in according to Oregon Public Records Law. We're going to try to get more information, but we've been told there is no information. They don't keep that kind of information, and yet they tell us that our kids, that there's, it's a very low number. But I don't know how you'd know that if you're not keeping those records. So we keep pushing back on that. And also we're moving forward on Yamhill County's efforts to have a strategic plan to do child welfare better. And that is with more local control. So we've got a contract coming up and all kinds of really exciting things.
That's pretty close, isn't it?
Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
We're gonna be meeting with them to finalize it. So a lot of exciting things as far as our kids go, and
And we need to acknowledge that that's because you're pushing.
well, I can push, but you gotta have people like
Yeah.
Silas and all the other partners in this community
That's
who are
right,
willing
but
to
if
do
you
it.
don't, if you're not willing to take the time to address the people who are making those decisions, it doesn't happen. Even with all the information that Silas can provide for you.
Well,
So
he's-
I appreciate it because it's gonna make a difference in the life of a lot of kids.
Thank you, and do owe a lot to our community partners. They're totally invested in this. So I don't have anything else. If anybody else has anything else for the good of the order?
Looking at me for a soccer update? or-
I was just, no, actually, I was just looking at the time, and I'd love to do a soccer
Yeah,
update,
we're out
but
of time.
Oh,
I've
Janice-
got to be
Janice
in
is
Salem
making
at
a call.
7 tonight, so. Anyway.
Timbers are in the playoffs.
Yes, they are.
Oh, really? All right, let me
Yes.
close this. Thank you all. Thank you. The Tim